Well, it's about time we got to a mainstream comic book. But there's a bit of a reason behind this one. Currently, DC Comics is having a massive event in which goes across all their titles called DC Rebirth. Something that's basically returned things to the way they were a little bit with some continuity bumps here and there after the continuity was shaken up by the new 52 as well as change a few things here or there. Basically, please the fans who were mainly mad about the New 52. And DC Rebirth is pretty good so far. Reading most of the titles that are in it, they're all pretty good. Now, we're not talking about Rebirth due to the fact it's still ongoing, still new. We won't really know how all that settles down until it ends, and even then, probably a few months to a year after all that ends. And secondly, we're not talking about 52 due to the fact that I want this to be a positive show, and if I talk about the 52, it's mostly just going to be me ranting and raving about how much the 52 sucks and how much they change things in a bad way. Such as Batman and Catwoman having sex on a roof. That was not a good idea. As well as the fact that, the 52 is still kind of fresh and needs to kind of, wiggle out, even though we're all pretty sure it sucked. So, what are we going to talk about? Just related to both of these works, we're going to talk about the Flashpoint, the event that started all this mess to begin with. And, well, let's get into it. So, yes, similar to last time, we're in a situation where there's a movie and a comic, most of DC animated movies, so there really isn't that much difference between the plot and the comic. Either way, we should be getting to the overall plot. One day, Barry Allen, aka the Flash, wakes up to find the world completely changed. Not only does he lack his powers, but his mother's alive, and she died when he was a child in his origin story. Not only that, but Justice League was never formed, Batman is killing criminals in Gotham City, and Wonder Woman and Aquaman are at war, and the war is threatening to eclipse the entire world. At the same time, Cyborg is trying to gather up some various superheroes, or at least their main superheroes and supervillains, in order to put an end to this war and save the world. At the same time, Barry sets out to discover who changed the world, as well as a way to maybe save it and set things right. As all this goes on, the war escalates, and a mysterious speedster is seen running across the battlefield, seemingly taunting Barry to come out. Overall, it's a decent premise if you're into the whole grimdark comic book universe thing. And it would be a pretty good idea as an Elseworlds tale, but it wasn't an Elseworlds comic. It was a main DCU comic that used to shape their continuity. Basically a crisis level event kind of thing, but unlike those comics, it feels way too small scale for what it's attempting. What I'm saying is this is a very Flash-centric story, and not the one that needs to be universe defining. Not even universe, but at least Earth-centric defining. Yes, the war between Atlantis and Amazonia is threatening to eclipse the entire world, but at the same time, most of the plot is a personal plot about Barry accepting his mother's death, as well as stuff with Batman and various other characters. It's a much more character-driven story, and I'm sorry to say it doesn't really work for something that's supposed to reset your entire continuity. Aside from that, it's a decent story with some pretty cool Elseworlds concepts I'd like to see explored elsewhere outside of this work, and are other things here and there. Examples include the war between the Amazons and the Atlanteans, Thomas Wayne Batman, what the Earthman had took in Superman, as well as the various other concepts and character changes that they do here and there throughout the story. Overall, it's a decent storyline, but not one that's all that necessary, honestly. And that's pretty much like some of my thoughts on this comic as a whole. Decent, but not really a necessity. So if you're looking for some Flash storylines, I do recommend this as one of his less convoluted time traveling and multiverse hopping adventures. But if you don't too much care for the Flash, then you can honestly just skip this one.